Let's do a quick planet review. So look up here at my poster. Let's say our planets in order from the sun. Ready? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Now, here's a fun little sentence you could say to help you remember the order. So look at the first letter, M, V, E, M, J, S, U, N. Ready? My very excellent mother just served us noodles. And she may have. Okay, so my very excellent mother just served us noodles. So that might help you remember the order of the planets. All right, so let's turn in your science book to page 197. And I know you can read this on your own. If you'd rather read it on your own, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and read it, and if you want to read it with me, that's fine too. So, the verse at the top says, "And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." So that's in Genesis 1:14. Have you ever wondered what life would be like if there were no calendars? How would you know when it was time for you to have another birthday? How would anyone know when it was time for school to be over and summer vacation to begin? What if there were no clocks? Would you be able to tell the time? Although our modern time measuring devices are convenient, we would not be lost without them. We would simply do what ancient peoples did, depend on the sky and on the heavenly bodies. So let's talk about the year and the day, how we could find those measurements of time without calendars. God has caused the earth to move in two different ways in regard to the sun. First, the earth revolves around the sun in 365 1/4 days, the period which we call a year. Remember, it revolves around the sun. We have an extra day in February every 4 years during leap year to use up the extra quarter of a day left over each year. Second, the earth rotates on its axis every 24 hours. During this rotation, the sun shines on the earth, giving periods of light and darkness, which we call days and nights. Ancient people often told time by using an instrument called a sundial. The position of the sun's shadow on the dial told them what time it was. And you can actually make your own sundial. You can, I know on Pinterest there's a lot of ideas. You could get a paper plate even, and then make some sort of a blade in the center that the sun can make a shadow with. And you can be able to tell the time using a sundial. God has caused us to have a day and a year of exactly the right length. If our day were as short as Jupiter's day, which is less than 10 hours, we would not have time for all the things we wanted to do. If it were as long as Mercury's day, which is 59 Earth days, wow, we would have to sleep many times before the day was over. Instead, we have a 24-hour day, which gives us just enough time to work or play and just enough time to sleep. Similarly, if our year were as short as Mercury's, which is only 88 days, we would not have adequate growing seasons. If it were as long as Mars's, which is 687 days, some countries would suffer from very severe winters. Everywhere we look, we see evidence of a loving God who created the world. He knows what is best for us. So God put Earth right here so that we are just enough distance from the sun in order to have the proper amount of hours in a day and days in a year. So, let's talk about the months and the seasons. The moon passes from new to new again approximately every 30 days. 12 times a year. Therefore, we have 12 months, or you could say months, in a year. Ancient peoples could determine the time of the month by watching the phases of the moon. Often these people considered the beginning of the month to be the appearance of the first thin sliver of moon after a short time when the moon could not be seen. So sometimes the moon is completely blocked and we can't see it, and other times it's a full moon. So whenever it starts to show and you just have that real skinny sliver, that's when they would say was the beginning of the month. Our seasons occur because of the tilt of the Earth's axis as it orbits the sun. Remember, the orbit is the path. Another way for our ancestors to determine months and seasons was by watching the stars. As the seasons change, different constellations become visible. 12 important constellations called the zodiac, or they're also called the Mazzaroth in Job 38:32. Once you look that up and you find that name, that means the constellations. Encircle the earth as it orbits the sun. As the earth travels its pathway around the sun appears to pass through these constellations, one per month. In the past, farmers knew that when the sun entered a particular constellation, it was time to plant a particular crop. They could tell which constellation the sun was in by watching to see which one was above the eastern horizon when the sun rose. So it's almost like a maze that we're going through the constellations, and we can tell which month we're in depending on which constellation the sun was in. All right, now the weeks. There is no orbit of planets or heavenly bodies that gives us the 7-day week. That was given to us directly by God to help us remember that He is the creator of all the marvels of the universe. God created our world in only 6 days, and on the 7th day, He rested. He did not need to rest, but He was giving us a picture that we are to give God the first day of the week, and we are to rest and give that to God. So, astronomy or astrology, there's a difference. Okay, perhaps now you understand better how important the heavens were to people of the past. Unfortunately, this importance was one reason that people, in their sinfulness, began to worship the heavenly objects. Instead of worshiping the creator of the universe, they turned to idolatry, which is the worship of false gods, and to astrology. Do not confuse the science of astronomy with the false belief of astrology. Astronomy is the scientific study of the stars, planets, and all the other heavenly bodies. That's what we're studying now, to discover their size, makeup, motion, and position. Astrology is a false belief or a superstition that claims to tell people futures by studying the influence of the sun, moon, and stars on people's lives. God warns us against believing in astrology. Read Isaiah 47:13 and 14 and Daniel chapter 2 to find out what God thinks of this false belief. When we look up at the heavens, we should think about God, not about fortune telling and luck, because God's the only one who knows our future. Nobody else knows, not even the stars know, and they're not people, they're just created. So only God knows. And Psalm 19:1 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth His handiwork." So, question: what movement of the earth gives us a year? So remember, that is when the earth revolves around the sun. Okay, next question. What movement of the earth gives us a day? That's when the earth rotates on its axis. Next question. What heavenly body gives us our 7-day week? The answer is, trick question, none. God gave us a 7-day week in his creation. Next one. Which heavenly body helps us to divide our year into 12 months? Remember, 12 moons. So the answer is the moon. Name a group of 12 important constellations. That's the zodiac. What is the difference between astronomy and astrology? So remember, astronomy is the study of the stars, and it's about God's creation. Astrology is a false belief that people's futures can be told by studying the stars. And then the last question, what evidence of God's goodness do we see in the length of the year and of the day? So the answer is that God made the year and the day just the right lengths so that we could have the right growing seasons and enough time to get our work done and be able to rest. You wouldn't want summer to be all year long, and you wouldn't want winter to be all year long either. So God has it just perfectly planned just for us. And then tomorrow we'll start talking about those different zodiac constellations in the pictures in the sky. So I'll see you tomorrow.